Greetings, Gamer Nation. I'm Eliza Lambert. So you've played D&D. You've fought your way from first level to 20th. You've seen goblins light themselves on fire and seen liches pay their taxes. What else does the world of tabletop role-playing games have to offer you? Today, we're here to discuss suburban consumption of the monstrous. I have with me here today Banana Chan and Sadia Bees, co-creators of Suburban Consumption of the Monstrous, a horror LARP or LARP anthology. Having only played D&D, can we start with what LARPing is? I know that stands for live action role play, but what exactly is that?
Yes. I would love to take this one if you don't mind, Banana.
Do it, Sadia. It's all yours.
Okay. So the easiest way to explain LARP, in my opinion, is it is playing pretend with a little bit of like rules and budget like structured over it. So everyone has LARPed. You were probably just 5 years old. It is the main difference from tabletop is in tabletop, when your character does something, you would narrate it, right? You would describe what your character is doing. And in LARP, you would just do it with your physical body most of the time. So it's, you spend more time in character, yeah, it's just playing pretend, and there are some rules to help you along.
Very cool. So it's kind of like some improv games where you're given a character and a situation and you just perform as that character would in that situation.
Yeah. There are like lots of different LARP mechanics that can like also help move the story along, or like help you feel like less on the spot than you do sometimes in improv. But the core concept is very similar.
Cool. So since this is a LARP anthology, can you tell me about the games included?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 14 different games. They are all horror themed. And the games that we have in this anthology are specifically the style of American freeform. So what that means is these experiences are shorter. So they can be anywhere between an hour to 4 hours, at most 4 hours. Usually they ended about like 3 hours long, even for like the larger player counts. And our player counts are anywhere between 1 to 8 players. So it's a smaller group, it's more intimate. It's nothing like, the buffer LARPs that you sometimes see in media, or the larger campaign types of games where you have like lots and lots of people like running around, like using those foam swords or throwing fireballs at each other. For these games, you're sitting around a dinner table, you don't have foam swords, you are using, minimal amount of props, you're not doing a lot of costuming unless you really want to. And usually these are like less prep and but more emotionally intense, more focused on relationships and more in the story.
Cool. So coming from someone who's only done D&D where I have to narrate everything that I do, what will someone like myself find familiar about these games included? Because we've talked a lot about what will be different.
I think that actually a lot of times people don't realize how much overlap there is between like a tabletop and LARP experience. So every time that you're like talking in character at the table and you're not rolling dice and you're just speaking as your character, that experience is pretty much one-to-one with LARPing. So I think that like type of character interaction would be really familiar, actually.
Very cool. Is that the only thing that would be similar? Like, how do you develop your characters? Is it as mathematical as it is for creating character sheets with D&D?
It's a little different, mostly because you're embodying your character, the mental capacity that is required for you to like act in character using your bodies. Like you're doing so much already, it would be really overwhelming for you to be like doing math, remembering like, all this backstory and like all this other stuff, right? So for specifically in American freeform games, usually you have like a shorter character sheet. So the character sheet would be just like maybe a couple of prompts, or maybe you're developing the story or the relationships as you go in the actual game. So you would establish all this stuff probably in the beginning, but over time you get more and more stuff like thrown your way. So that's I would say like the main difference. But other than that, most of it is pretty much it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I would say like character development is pretty different because like you don't have to do a lot with like your skills and abilities. But especially like I like to go into like either tabletop and LARP sessions with a pretty developed character because it makes me feel like I know what I'm doing and like makes me feel more secure. So I tend to like develop them in a pretty similar way. Like, oh, what are some like core memories for this character? Or like what are their relationships going to be like? So that kind of character development I think can be pretty similar.
Okay. So these seem to kind of be pushing the boundaries of word game. Tell me some of your peak experiences playing these LARP games you guys have personally had.
I got to play test Clarity Comes to Dinner, which is one of the games in the anthology, and I had an absolutely great time doing it. Clarity Comes to Dinner is you're hosting a dinner party and you invite your old friends from college over, but you've joined a cult and you're trying to like convert them to your cult through this dinner party. I think one of the really genius things about this game is like it is intensely awkward and it can be really awkward like in character and out of character. So that feeling is like really builds on itself. And one of my favorite parts about it is Banana actually made this cult recruitment video that you play as part of the game. You're like, oh, just watch this fun video, my guests. And it is so bizarre and creepy. And it was so fun watching watching the players' reaction to it because like they had never like I'd seen the video before, but no one else in the room had. There was like the video ended and there was like a solid 30 seconds where no one knew what to say.
So like, is that video available for everyone to see someplace?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is a link. It's on YouTube. I'd be happy to share it later for you.
Marvelous. Please make sure that the show's co-creator gets that link. We will include it in the links of this interview because I definitely have got to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. The actors in it, we hired Aaron Katnosayas, who's like a professional voice actor, and he was like the cult leader. We had game designers Lucian Khan and Viditya Valetti also like in the game, like just like acting as like cult members. It was great.
So this wasn't just like you pulled out your phone and made a video. This was a like full-fledged production value video. That makes it so
Banana,
much
budget, but yes.
Yeah. Banana did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
So would you describe that as your peak moment as well, Banana, or do you have a different one?
Mine is a different one. So Our Child is my favorite, and I got to play test that where I got to So this is a three-player game where it's a couple who are trying to create a child through non-conventional means. And what that means is they've created this child through magic and maybe some other stuff, right? So it's like kind of weird how they made this child. And so one of the players is the child and the other two players are the parents. And they have to go through this daily routine of like giving the child tea and giving them a snack and reading them a story and then tucking them into bed. Like there's this whole routine that they have to go through. And during the game itself, the child gets to ask for weird things because they are this creepy kid made out of magic, and they are going to curse the family if they don't get what they want. And they get to speak in third person as well. So that was a lot of fun for me because I got to play the child. So I got to say things like, Emily wants a pair of scissors. Emily wants a lock of mommy's hair. Emily would like a tooth now, please. And like, just get to like freak out the other players. And it was a lot of fun.
Did they give you the tooth and the lock of her hair?
We use props.
I mean, I figured it wasn't like some player actually cutting their hair, but
But there is another game that does that, which Sadia did an actual play for.
Yeah, and I did actually
gosh.
cut my hair for it, but like, I don't
That's
know.
dedication. That is
I'm a
dedication.
freak. I love doing stuff like that.
Why get attached to your hair in one particular style?
I already cut this myself, like when I'm just like, when it's midnight and I'm like, oh, I'm done. So like, how much damage can I really do during a game?
Right.
But your actual play was really cool. So
Thank you.
they did an actual play for one of the solo games, which is, oh, my brain is not working right now.
It is Hungry too.
It is Hungry too. And yeah, they did a fantastic job where they just basically like recorded everything, and it looks really creepy and really awesome.
Thank you. Banana also did an actual play of one of our solo games, A Housewife in Her 20s, which is also very cool. I feel like I had never done a solo game before, and like watching Banana's actual play like helped me figure out like, oh, that's like how this would kind of feel and how this would go.
So now that we've gone through quite a few fun stories, tell me about some of the other work you guys have done in the geek sphere.
Totally.
You want to go first, Sadia?
Oh, I can.
Yeah, I could go. Either one, doesn't matter.
I feel like you have your list prepared usually.
I have a list, but Sadia, you can go first if you want. I'm gonna like prepare my list mentally.
Okay. So I actually mostly do LARP design as far as game design goes. I do work with tabletop, but mostly I'm an illustrator for tabletop games. I've done some work for like Gun and Slinger. I did some work for Sleepaway. I also drew some cards for Banana's game Jiangxi. And yeah, a lot of my LARP design, I was running like kind of like large scale, they're called like blockbuster games. They're kind of like higher production. They have like 40 to 60 players at an event. And I was doing like one or two of those a year for a couple of years where I was game designing and organizing and running those. And now I'm mostly focused on designing like games that you can play at home with a couple friends for like under $20. That's my focus now after doing that, because I was like, I'm really tired of designing like experiences that like I kind of couldn't afford to do myself.
That's fair, yeah. Why work on something that you can't feasibly do consistently yourself?
Yeah. It was like a really big shift in my design process, and it made me like really excited about designing again when I was like, oh, this is a game that like I own completely. I can share for free if I want, or like I can set the price and it's $5, and that's like something that me or my friend could like afford.
Yeah, I think that this project, Suburban Consumption, is definitely, like for me, a passion project in the same vein that like, you know, I want to make something that's a little more accessible in terms of LARP. And a little bit more accessible, because like usually with LARPs, you have to spend like, I don't know, $600 or something like that for a weekend, which isn't, you know, it's cool, it's super fun, like, you know, if you get to do it, but at the same time, like right now, because everything is, you know, so unpredictable, and you know, the world itself is just so weird right now with travel and everything. Like I think that this project that we're working on is definitely like a more accessible way of like approaching LARP. And also like it's a nice getaway from like the other stuff that I do, which is like more mass market sometimes. So I've worked on like Sadia said, like Jean Chouplan and the Banquet Hall, which isn't mass market, that's more like indie. But we raised over $100,000 on Kickstarter. So that was like, I co-designed that with Senfon Lim, which did really well. But I've also worked on Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, so I wrote a little bit on that. And in terms of like other mass market stuff, I've also worked on Scooby-Doo Betrayal at Mystery Mansion. So there's like a lot of rules when it comes to like working on mass market stuff like that versus like, you know, passion projects like this and like, you know, trying to make the
They
stuff
don't let
that
you make
love.
Scooby-Doo gay.
Right, exactly.
Make it gay.
Like, I don't know. I think that dog
I mean,
is gay.
I would
Yeah.
argue that Daphne and Velma were always gay, but
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
but when you're creating your own game, you can say that. You can
Yes.
just flat out say it. This is my game. Velma and Daphne are gay. And
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
Shaggy and Fred too.
Who can say?
Uh, so going back to your game that we're talking about, is there any other folk that deserve a shout out for their work on this game? Because we've got you two here. Who else do we need to thank?
Oh my gosh. Well, we have like a whole huge list of people to thank for like our play testers and like people who encourage us during the writing process. Also like our publisher, Pelgrane Press. They're helping us put this together. And yeah, we also have like an amazing team of artists who are going to be making illustrations for the book if we fund. So that's really exciting. There are like 6 of them, including me. So that's also kind of a long list. But yeah, there are a lot of people helping out, a lot of really cool people involved in this project.
So if you've watched this channel before, you know that I'm a huge proponent in making sure we thank the artists because I love admiring the art in physical copies of books and games.
Yeah, here, let me just go down our shout out list.
Yes.
We have Trevor Henderson, we have Jabari Weathers, we have Morrow, we have Tom Horseman, we have Christian Dane, and we have Koei Kun, who are all doing some art for us, which I'm really excited about. Jabari actually just finished their first piece for the book, which is for the game Our Child, and it's like a glowing baby like nursing blood from its dad. It's like very creepy.
It's so good.
I gotta imagine there's gotta be a lot of really cool, creepy art that's gonna be included in this.
Yeah, I think the art's gonna be really fun. Partially because a lot of the games are so weird that like
Mhm.
I
mean, Demon Magic Baby can't get much weirder than that.
Yeah.
Oh, there are a few games that get weirder.
Oh gosh, do tell.
There was that one where you have the cannibal dinner where you are sitting. I think it's We Are What We Are, where you're all having dinner, and it's like a 4-course meal, I believe, 4 or 3-course.
It's a 3-course meal.
3-course meal.
Oh yeah, so that game is like you serve the like appetizer course and you're just like a normal little family, and then you like serve the main course and it definitely has human meat in it and you guys start getting a little funky and weird. And then the final course is that you choose one of your family members to eat and like they're the dessert, so you just like cannibalize each other on the dinner table.
It's great because one of the mechanics is that like one of the players has to lay on the dinner table or like the floor and just like pretend to be eaten.
Marvelous. I volunteer. Okay. So you guys mentioned that you had a Kickstarter for this game. Tell me a little bit about the Kickstarter. You said you raised $100,000?
No.
No. That's
did I mishear that?
That's my previous
that
Kickstarter. No, that's
previous Kickstarter.
Yeah,
what about
that's for
one?
Junction. This is we are still on Kickstarter, and we are currently at 69% funded with 10 days to go.
All right, getting on it.
Yeah,
working on it.
Working on
I'll
it.
tell all my nerd friends.
Slow and
Thank you.
steady right now.
It is a strange anthology.
It is, but I'm super intrigued on it. It sounds delightfully weird.
I mean, I would be thrilled to get you into LARP. Actually, two of my playtesters were first-time LARPers for Clarity Comes to Dinner, and it went super well. Both of them agreed to LARP with me again. So that's all I can ask for a first LARP. They're willing to do it again. It's a success.
It definitely sounds like something I'd be into. I have a theater background, so like fully immersing myself in my character is something I kind of already do when I play D&D. I get way into the backstory and the characterizations and the mannerisms of my character.
I
Yeah.
love that.
This is definitely like immersive theater, but you're performing for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I always perform for myself. So are there any RPGs that are not created by you guys that you think would be a good for a person like myself who has only played D&D?
Yeah. I always am trying to get more people to play Monster Hearts.
I was just gonna say that. I was gonna do that one.
Yeah,
It must be a good one then.
It is like my favorite tabletop RPG. It's a Powered by the Apocalypse game, which means that like the system was originally Apocalypse World, and now there are a bunch of games that use that system, but like heavily modified to be their own thing. Monster Hearts is kind of inspired by like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or like other like teen drama but supernatural type shows. So it's a really like high drama, like high social intensity. You're all dysfunctional teenagers, but you're also all monsters. So like the drama that happens is like very interesting and fun.
That definitely sounds fun.
I love it. It's like if we sit down and we're like, we could play any tabletop RPG right now, like most of the time I would choose Monster Hearts.
It's a really good game.
All right,
Since I stole your suggestion, Banana, do you have a different one?
I'll just say Bluebeard's Bride. And it's also like a Powered by the Apocalypse game, so it does use the same sort of 2d6 system that we were talking about earlier with how Apocalypse World uses the 2d6 system. So it's very cinematic. It's about like the Bluebeard mythology. I don't know if you know about it, but basically
a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, basically what it is you're playing the wife of Bluebeard, and you're taking on different facets of her personality. And at the end of the story, at the end of like the mythology, is that Bluebeard kills off his wives, and he just has like this, creepy room where he just has all their bodies. So you're playing the wife, like I think it's up to like 4 players, I think, who are taking on different facets of her personality, and basically you're going through different rooms and trying to figure out like what's going on. And at the end of the game, I think there are different outcomes where you could escape. Maybe you like overthrow Bluebeard, or maybe you end up in the cellar with all the other wives. So it's a very intense and dark game, but it is very good.
It sounds very intense, but very intriguing.
Oh yeah, it's another like feminine horror type of game.
We love it. We love it. Okay, so to wrap this up and bring it back to your game. So for when I play D&D, I need to have my character sheet, I need to have my dice set out, and I might need a little figurine of my character. When you're LARPing, I know you mentioned something about needing you have a character sheet as well. Do you need anything else to LARP?
It depends on the game. All of these games are pretty like low material requirement, but they'll also all like list at the start of the game like what things you need to play. So most of the time for these games, you need like some sort of food to play with. So like it'll be like you need dinner for this game. But for a game like It Is Hungry 2, it'll also be like you need nail clippers for this game. So So most of the requirements aren't like necessarily things that you'd have to like buy or things that'd be like hard to come by, but there's like a little list of things to like collect around your house before you begin playing.
Yeah, and they're super simple too. Like most of it is just like regular household items and a few things that you might have to print out.
Okay. Well, that's not nearly as intimidating as I have originally thought that it would be. My only exposure to LARPing has been those depictions in media where it's like full-fledged battle armor and there's like 30 people.
Like, listen, I do that too, and it's really fun sometimes. And sometimes I want to be able to LARP, but like, still sleep in my own bed. Still go to bed early, and not have to like just the amount that goes into like a full weekend event is so exhausting.
I can imagine. Well, thank you so much for both of you meeting with me today. Is there anything else you wanted to add about your games, things you guys got in the works before we wrap up the interview?
We have 10 days to go in the Kickstarter, so any little bit of help is great.
Yeah, I would say like this Kickstarter is really good. If you are thinking of trying out LARP, it's especially a great way to LARP more casually in the pandemic, especially. But also we really wanted it to be like, it takes around the same level of effort to prepare and play one of these LARPs as it does to prepare and play a tabletop session. So we really wanted to make it easier if you're like used to tabletop to like kind of come in and try LARP for the first time.
All right. Well, I'll see if we can't get my co-creator to get a link to your Kickstarter to be in the show notes below as well, because
Fantastic.
maybe we can get some of my fans here. We can get some people who watch this channel to help fund this in the last few days of your Kickstarter campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
Eliza.
thank you so much.
One thing is that we should probably list some content warnings and also say that this is a game or this is an anthology for adults and not for like kids who want to get into LARP, because it's a little intense.
Yeah. Right. If you're interested in what we got lined up for our little channel, I'll be learning about the Mothership RPG next week. The show's producer and co-creator Ben Riggs has a book on RPG adventure design theory called Encounter Theory, available on drivethrurpg.com right now. Click the show notes if you're interested. Like what you hear, Gamer Nation? Email us at afterdndplay@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at AfterDND. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you like what you hear, and tell a friend about our show. I'm Eliza Lambert, your guide to your next geeky game, signing off.